recently we talked about Google's antitrust lawsuit, which started because Google just cannot help themselves and have to pay off all of their competition, all of the OEMs, to use Google products by default because Google wants absolute market dominance. But don't be tricked into believing that everybody else is good and only Google is doing some pretty questionable behaviors. Today, let's talk about Microsoft and the recently formed Browser Choice Alliance. This is a coalition of browsers dedicated to the principle that consumers should have the right to use their browser of choice on Windows devices. Now, considering it was quite common to use IE, Internet Explorer, and now Edge for one purpose, and that is downloading another browser, I think it's fair to say that most people agree with this goal and would like their operating system to get out of the way and just let them use the browser that they want to use. Now, this is quite a new organization, although if you look at the news tab, it does look considerably older. So this right here, this is the only actual article from the Browser Choice Alliance. Notice these sources on every other one here. Data Economy, TechSpot, Windows Latest. Let's go to the fourth page. This goes to 2021. That is from the Register. So it does link out to a lot of other articles that are relevant to what they talk about on this site, what they are trying to achieve, but it hasn't been around since 2021. I do think they should rearrange how it is being shown. It does sort of mislead you into thinking that it's been around a lot longer than it really has been. Now, I probably wouldn't be talking about this if it was just some random little project you've never really heard of, unless it was actually, getting the ball moving, actually making some progress. But there are some very interesting members here. Firstly, we have Vivaldi. Opera, a company you probably haven't heard of. This is BrowserWorks. They make a project called WaterFox, which you may have heard of. Another one which you almost certainly haven't heard of, that being Wavebox. And then last but not least, and the reason why I especially wanted to talk about this, Google Chrome. That project, that company, that browser that currently has their own antitrust lawsuit going on is getting in the business of talking about antitrust happening at other companies. Yes, that browser that has a 67%-ish, the numbers are kind of hard to properly measure, market share of all browsers, not browsers on Windows, across macOS, across Windows, across Linux, across everything out there, including mobile, that Google Chrome is talking about antitrust at another company. Now, yes, it is very funny, and stones and glass houses, pot calling the kettle black, all of those things, yes, I am well aware, I have joked about it as well. That doesn't mean the whole idea is wrong or what they're trying to do is bad. It does give the Alliance quite a bit more weight than if it was just some random little browsers like Pale Moon or Libre Wolf and things like that. But it is very clear that one of its members already has a fairly large market share, and I would not be surprised if they're trying to do this to get a bit more market dominance. Whereas the others, they're fairly small browsers and are just trying to claw back anything they can get. So why make an alliance? Is it just to cry about Microsoft and how bad Windows is? Possibly in their private Slack channels. I don't have access to those. But they did release a public press release. Browser Choice Alliance formed to raise awareness of Microsoft dark patterns that limit consumers' ability to use an internet browser of their choice. For anyone who doesn't know, a dark pattern is where you have a UX design where it encourages the user to do something which might be against their best interest. Let's say, for example, you have a ad that has a purchase box in it, and the default selected option is yes, and you try to cancel out of the ad, and it automatically goes and makes that purchase for you. Or another good example of this is, let's say you have those old wizard installers on Windows, which would install a toolbar. So you're going through the steps of installing an application, and there's this little checkbox which you don't really pay attention to because it's like down the bottom of the window, and it looks like it's just part of the installation process for the application, but going next past that page goes and installs that, and you did not intend to do so. It's still showing you what it's doing, but it's doing so in kind of a misleading way. Or you have Adobe with their monthly sign up and their yearly sign up, but with the yearly sign up, they show the price as the monthly price, but they don't really give you a good indication that when you sign up for the yearly price, you have to pay the entire year. If you want to know more about dark patterns, the Wikipedia page on dark patterns is a really good place to start. Anyway, back to the post. This group will advocate for consumers' rights to choose, keep, and use their preferred browser of choice on Windows without that choice being undermined. Through dark patterns, technical roadblocks, and deception, Microsoft prevents consumers from finding and using the browser they want and setting it as their preferred default on Windows PCs. These actions affect not just browser developers, but the entire web ecosystem. Once again, need I remind you of a member of the Alliance and the Graph, where Google has basically the exact same thing being talked about for them. The Browser Choice Alliance is calling for urgent intervention from regulators across the world to address this and defend consumers' rights to choose. For example, the group is calling on the European Commission to list Microsoft Edge as a gatekeeper under the Digital Markets Act, DMA. Now, for anyone who's not European, you probably have no idea what this is. According to the European Commission's website, which is about as first party as you can get, what are gatekeepers? Gatekeepers are large digital platforms providing any of a predefined set of digital services, core platform services, such as online search engines, app stores, and messenger services. These companies have a strong economic position, significant impact on the internal market, and are active in multiple EU countries. I think that is fair for Edge being pre-installed on every Windows machine. A strong intermediation position, meaning they link a large user base to a large number of businesses. Yes, it is a web browser, it is on Windows. An entrenched and durable position in the market, meaning that their position has been stable over time. Windows basically has always had a default web browser. First it was Internet Explorer, and now it is Edge. Now, funnily enough, Microsoft is already a gatekeeper due to some of their other products, but I'll go over those in just a moment. If something is declared a gatekeeper, what must they do? Allow third parties to interoperate with the gatekeeper's own services in certain specific situations, allow their business users to access the data that they generate in their use of the gatekeeper's platform, provide companies advertising on their platform with the tools and information necessary for advertisers and publishers to carry out their own independent verification of the advertisements hosted by the gatekeeper, and allow their business users to promote their offer and conclude contracts with their customers outside the gatekeeper's platforms. Now, but the more important part is what they may no longer do. Treat services and products offered by the gatekeeper itself more favorably in ranking than similar services or products offered by third parties on the gatekeeper's platform. Prevent consumers from linking up to businesses outside their platforms. Prevent users from uninstalling any pre-installed software or app if they wish so. Track end users outside of the gatekeeper's core platform service for the purpose of targeted advertising without effective consent having been granted. This has always kind of been an issue on Windows. There has always been a lot of challenge with removing some of those pre-installed Microsoft apps. A lot of stuff is kind of linked together. There is stuff that you can do, and people do that. Chris Titus Tech has done a lot of stuff to actually make that happen, but it's not as easy as just clicking uninstall in a lot of cases. Now, as for those other products, it's not as much as Alphabet, it's not as much as Apple, but it does still have a couple of them. Why, when I zoom in, did it do that? LinkedIn and Windows PC OS, which is not the name of it. It is... There's never been a PC in the name. Windows 11, Windows 10, all of the Windows family. Now, LinkedIn's a bit of a weirder one because LinkedIn should have just been a business social media platform, but in a lot of cases, having a LinkedIn, having an active LinkedIn, having a filled-in LinkedIn has become a requirement for applying to a job. Like, you'll go to a job application and it will request your LinkedIn profile. It has become a really important part of actually getting a job. I hate it. I don't think a social media platform should be part of a job application, especially with what you see over LinkedIn now, because it's basically just like Facebook, but with suits. There has been a rising chorus of complaints about Microsoft's practices. In July 2024, Opera filed an appeal against the European Commission's decision not to designate Microsoft Edge as a gatekeeper under the Digital Markets Act. Feel free to go and read this in your own time. Vivaldi also had an open letter back in 2023 on Microsoft tactics in relation to the DMA, along with various other media outlets also reporting. Why is Reuters not loading? There we go. On the same sort of stuff. It's all well and good if they say, oh, Microsoft is bad, antitrust, all of this stuff, but what is Microsoft actually doing that is a problem? Windows is the leading desktop operating system with over 70% market share globally, according to StatCounter. Now, this is a very misleading way to frame this. So StatCounter is the website we looked at before that has Chrome at 67.48% market share. At the same time, yes, it is true that Windows has 72.96% market share, a little bit higher than they suggested. But Edge, being this line right here, is sitting around 4.81%. So even with that market dominance, Edge is still a fairly small browser. I love that so few people are using FreeBSD. It shows up as 0%. However, that doesn't mean Microsoft isn't trying really, really hard to make that number as high as possible. It's just people still don't care about Edge because of how bad Internet Explorer was. At every turn, Microsoft uses dark patterns, technical roadblocks, and deception to stop consumers accessing the browser they want or setting it as default. This includes creating hurdles for downloading a different browser. Now, I'm not entirely sure what they are referring to here. I wish they had a proper example. The other ones, though, I have my own examples. Now, if this was just a one-off occurrence and then never happened again, fine. That's okay. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Windows 11 continues to default back to Edge. How do I permanently change it to not use Edge and own the browser that I select? I have changed the default browser both as an admin user and specifically with admin level access. Windows 11 continues changing it back to Edge. No matter what I do, Microsoft has rigged it to go back to Edge. Here is another person with the exact same problem. Here is another person back in 2017 with the exact same problem. So what was that? They don't mention what version they were on, but that would have been probably 8.1 or 10. 10 was out by then, yeah? I think so. And here's someone over on Reddit who had it happening over multiple days, and it was telling them in their notifications. Force opening links in Microsoft's own services, Teams/Outlook, into Edge or Bing. This one actually got some mainstream coverage from The Verge. Microsoft is forcing Outlook and Teams to open links in Edge, and IT admins are angry. So even if your default browser was set to something else, for those specific links, it just ignored it. Now, obviously, this was a technical problem. This was a technical malfunction. I'm sure it was. We have a responsibility to ensure user choices are respected. You certainly have that. Whether you're going to do so is another question. Coercive messaging around browser choice, encouraging users to restore Microsoft recommended browser settings. If you've used Windows for any length of time, you probably know exactly what this is about. As an example, there's no need to download a new web browser. Microsoft recommends using Microsoft Edge for a fast, secure, and modern web experience that can help save you time and money. This starts to read like a YouTube ad read. Or the one being referenced in the press release, Windows 10 is now nagging users with full-screen Microsoft Edge ads. This was back in 2020. Use recommended browser settings, or when they did the same thing a year later with a different interface. And here we have some quotes from their various members: Opera, Vivaldi, Google Chrome browser, Wavebox, and WaterFox. Feel free to go and pause and read these for yourself, or go check out the article linked down below. However, there are some notable names that you might expect to be on the member list that just aren't here. So that is the entire member list. But what about, your Braves of the world, or, Firefox, or others like that? I'm really surprised that Mozilla isn't involved in this. Apparently, there are other companies who may share similar opinions as the Browser Choice Alliance, but for whatever reason, did not want to be publicly involved with it. They say here due to fear of retaliation from Microsoft, whether through public smear campaigns or less public interference with their businesses. Now, considering, Brave, their Twitter feed just kind of rants about nonsense, and their engineers and other people involved in the company, I would not expect that from them. Possibly Mozilla, because they're kind of in this weird situation where they're doing a lot of restructuring and trying to make things work. Now, as I said earlier, specifically about Chrome, stones and glass houses. Now, considering the European Commission has already made a decision on Edge in the past and did not consider them a gatekeeper, I don't know if anything's gonna come out of this. It's very possible that with more voices and more browsers saying they are acting like a gatekeeper, maybe things will be different, but I don't know. And I know there's worries about anytime Google's involved in something, but I don't see the goal here being bad for the end user, because even if Chrome is trying to do this to eat up the tiny bit of Edge market share, at the end of the day, if you don't like Chrome, you still wouldn't have to use Chrome. But what do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think they should be labeled a gatekeeper? Why do you think that Chrome is involved in the alliance? And who else do you think should be involved as well? I'd love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes, Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and what's your browser of choice?